जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय राधा श्याम सुंदर राधे जय कृष्ण बलराम जय कृष्ण बलराम जय गौरान्विताय जय गौरान्विताय जय जय प्रभुपाद जय श्रील प्रभुपाद हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय हरे कृष्णा thank you all for joining welcome anybody remembers what we did last week Hare Krishna Rao Prabhu yeah
Yes, Guruji. So basically, Sukadeva Goswami, Parikshit Maharaj asked Sukadeva Goswami, saying that if the person who is going to die in next 7 days, so
correct
what is expected to do?
correct
Sukadeva Goswami started explaining those things.
correct
So
there were two questions or two parts of one question we can say that he had asked so one part was a person who is about to die what he should do or what is the ultimate duty of such a person. And in addition to this, one also he asked one more question. Anybody remembers?
What a person should not do.
Correct. That is one aspect which Shukadev Goswami automatically answers, but that is not something which he asked. So he in the yeah, here this is open. So in this particular stuff, in the verse 37 and 38, correct, he asks two questions to Shukadev Goswami. So one is what you said, show the perfection, a way of perfection for all persons, especially for one who is about to die. Secondly, what a man should hear, chant, remember, and worship. Oh, Prabhu, sorry, yeah, I forgot this aspect. And also what he should not do. He does ask. Sorry for that. So this is what he asks. Okay. And then किसका तो माइक ओपन है मेरे ख्याल से राव प्रभु हाँ थैंक यू so now Shukadeva Goswami starts answering this one, and while answering, he talks about what should not be done also, which is from verse number 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Yeah, we remember this one. Hare Krishna.
Yes,
Yeah,
Prabhu.
yeah.
Okay, so the key point over there was the aspect of what do you say? Prior to this one, in that first verse, what Shukadeva Goswami talked about was uh, the question which is related to Krishna, because it talks about the matter of Krishna, so that the speaker, the hearer, as well as the audience, they are benefited out of it. So that's why this topic is glorious. So any question about that topic is also glorious. Now, it also means that anything which is outside this one is not glorious. And what all that could be, so one of them he explains here is materially engrossed people, meaning who have more material desires. They are into knowledge of ultimate truth. So meaning, if you go and speak to them, they will ignore it, or they may have already reached a stage wherein they uh, they have taken a stance that this is not for me. My aim is only material enjoyment. Now, if you remember, such similar verse was spoken in Bhagavad Gita. Anybody remembers this? कौन सा था वो? सेकंड चैप्टर में वर्स था, when Krishna started talking about karma yoga or buddhi yoga for that matter. That is when he spoke about it. Nahin? So this is the verse number 41. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. But the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many branched. Okay, now what does this mean? Is basically, when you are materially oriented, you have many subjects from which you can satisfy your desire. The problem is that you never get satisfied. Even if one or all of your desires are fulfilled, still never get satisfied. Because, one moment. So, because once one desire is fulfilled, another desire springs up. So that's why there are many subject matters by which one can try and fulfill their desire, but practically it never happens. Thank you. Okay. Now, then from verse number 5 onwards, he started talking about the glories of bhakti. So what was the prime topic that he mentioned there? Anybody remembers? Hare Krishna.
Prabhu is in 2.1.5. He said that those who want to free from the miseries of all this has to remember and also glorify the personality of the Godhead, who is the super soul, controller, and savior from all miseries.
Correct. So that if you look at it by verse number 5, he has almost answered at a summary level all his questions. Yeah. What should not be done has been answered in 2, 3, 4. What should be done has also been answered in this particular verse. What should one remember, chant, and hear, and all that has already been spoken. So if he wanted, he could have closed Bhagavatam here itself. Okay. Now he goes on further, talks about that those activities which are conforming to the previous verse, which is basically you can become free from material desires, free from the miseries that are generated from these material desires by remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay. So Rao Prabhu, you want to continue? What was the background?
Yeah, yes, Prabhuji. So we know that, and because we need to look for the absolute truth, because there we studied about the 7 things and 7 qualities of the God. Then we understood that one, this Kaito Dharma got rejected because the Dharma, the Kama Moksha, you'll get into the same cycle without
Correct.
coming out. So
Correct.
Bhakti Yoga is on the top. Yeah. Then we studied about Mayavadis and Brahmavadis.
Yeah.
Uh,
Fine. So, so we also understand about a little bit about Shukadev Goswami, right? Where did he study, from whom? And then we understand about the parampara system also, right? So a literature like Srimad Bhagavatam, first of all, you cannot create by yourself. Okay. Even we studied in the first canto, Narad Muni inspired Dvaipayana Vyasadev to write about it by giving the necessary knowledge, necessary bhakti, and all that. And when he went and meditated upon Krishna, then he was able to start compiling Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, on top of that one, Dvaipayan Vyasadev was able to teach his own son Shukadev Goswami about Bhagavatam, because of which he is able to understand this one. Now, for them, because Sanskrit was their like everyday language, for them speaking this was and understanding it was simple. But for us, somebody needs to translate it and explain the deeper meaning. The level of knowledge, especially spiritual knowledge, was far, far higher in those people at that time compared to what we are today. That's why we require even a single word to be explained in detail as to why that word is important and why not someone else. So that's why it becomes important for us to even more attentively hear and go in far more scrutinizing depth to understand the meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, from verse number 12 till verse number 14, we haven't done 14, we have done until 13, but there is one specific point that is coming out here. Anybody can identify what is that point? What is Shukadev Goswami trying to teach us with the example of King Khatwanga? Remember, we had heard this. Yeah.
Katwanga, yeah.
Why is Khatwanga mentioned here?
Maybe
Because
we want to highlight the primary duty of us. Basically, our primary duty is to serve the Lord. So he was giving the example of Katwanga when he supported the in a war the god. So he asked about when he's going to die. So when he knows that one is going to die in the next moment, so immediately he left all these things because he know about the ultimate goal, so serving the Lord. So I think in that perspective, they would have been given that example.
Yeah. So we can summarize this to say that it is not the quantity of life that matters, it is the quality that matters. Correct? That is one aspect. Secondly, he is comparing the duration available with Maharaj Parikshit with what Maharaj Khatwanga had. So Maharaj Khatwanga luckily, had only one muhurta, which is hardly a moment. And he, Parikshit Maharaj, at least had 7 days with him. So he is saying that with that short life, Maharaj Khatwanga was able to give up all his material thoughts, desires, and everything and focus fully on the Lord. So he is saying if he could achieve that, you can very well achieve it. Okay. So which is the key point that we can understand. Okay. So let's start with verse number 14. Hare Krishna. Any question around whatever we did so far? नहीं?
No, Prabhuji.
Okay, chalo, let's start with verse number 14. तवाप्येतर हि कौरव्य सप्ताहं जीवितावधिः उपकल्पय तत्सर्वं तावद्यत् सांप्रदायिकम्. Translation.
Maharaj Parikshit, now your duration of life is limited to 7 more days. So during this time, you can perform all those rituals which are needed for the best purpose of your next life. Sukhdev Goswami, after citing the example of Maharaj Katwang, who prepared himself for the next life within a very short time, encouraged Maharaj Parikshit by saying that since he still had 7 days at his disposal, he could easily take advantage of the time to prepare himself for the next life. Indirectly, the Goswami told Maharaj Parikshit that he should take shelter of the sound representation of the Lord for the 7 days, still remaining in the duration of his life, and thus get himself liberated. In other words, everyone can best prepare himself for the next life simply by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam as it was recited by Sukhdev Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit. The rituals are not formal, but they are also favorable conditions. But there are also favorable conditions which are required to be carried out as instructed hereafter.
Hare Krishna. So
Hare-
what has happened here now? The comparison between Maharaj Parikshit's duration of life with what Maharaj Khatwanga had, that was being done. And now, with that comparison, the conclusion is being drawn out. So he can perform all that Maharaj Khatwanga did, and he can do even more also, which relates with his questions, which relates with his purpose and purpose of life altogether. So now you will see here he is saying best purpose of your next life, but actually nobody wants a next life, especially a person like Shukadev Goswami. Okay, he would never encourage anybody to take a next life unless it is fully devoted to the service of the Lord. So whatever he is saying here, we will know, as you know, Shukadev Goswami takes this discussion forward. He increases the quality or the level of the topic, which means whatever Maharaj Parikshit has been asking so far, he is trying to find out the depth of his questions. And
Acha.
Hare Krishna, किसका mic open है? Sushil Prabhu, thank you. So he's guessing his seriousness also, as is he really serious to understand the main topic of bhakti. So initially, for the first uh, few verses or 1 or 2 chapters, I would say, he gives various options to him. He gives one option of something called as paschatap also, which is what is atonement in English. Paschatap meaning paschat in Sanskrit meaning later, tap meaning a kind of a irritation, a kind of a difficulty that we bring upon ourselves when we realize we have done a mistake. So, for example, if we say, for example, kill animal, okay, and we realize it's a mistake. So we'll do paschatap. We will do some kind of we will bring upon some kind of trouble for ourselves. So let's say, for example, I will not eat for 6 days or 7 days and not drink water. That is like my paschatap. So I'm trying to atone for the sins that I have committed. But that has its own problem, because paschatap does not necessarily improve the mentality of the person. So when Shukadev Goswami proposes this to him, he rejects it, Maharaj Parikshit. And then he asks for a deeper explanation. And that is when he starts taking the conversation to the higher level. So at this point of time, it is like, throwing stones in the water to gauge the depth of the water. That is going on right now. Now, if you remember, in either the 10th verse or the 11th verse, it was mentioned as Hari Namanu Kirtanam. I think 10th verse. Nahi. Harir Namanu Kirtanam in the 11th verse. Yeah. So this basically the glorification of the sound of the name of the Lord, that was being proposed as a solution, which is what he is using this to say that, okay, fine, by just taking the shelter of the sound representation of the Lord, you can get yourself liberated completely. That is what he is also proposing to him. And now Prabhupada relates that sound representation to not just Harinamanu Kirtanam, meaning the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. Prabhupada relates that with Srimad Bhagavatam also. Right, so he says that everyone can best prepare himself for the next life simply by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, do you remember where and how this was equated? That Srimad Bhagavatam hearing or reciting or speaking about it is same as Harinamanu Kirtanam. Anybody remembers? Nahi? So, if you remember, there were totally 6 questions asked by the sages in the first canto. Right? One of them is, who has taken the shelter of whom has the religious principles taken the shelter? Was the question after Sri Krishna has left this world. So that is when this was, I think, the 6th question, which was answered in the 40th verse, if I'm not wrong, of the 3rd chapter, maybe. And yeah, I think 3rd chapter, where it says that it is Srimad Bhagavatam who now can give shelter to all the religious principles. And that is a literary incarnation, the book incarnation of the Lord. So whatever is in the book, Srimad Bhagavatam, is what the Lord is, what the Lord wants us to know, what the whatever we speak is about the Lord, whatever we speak is for the Lord. It is basically the God, it's God in itself. That is basically the equation of Harinamanu Kirtanam, whether we chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra or we recite Bhagavatam or we speak or we understand Bhagavatam, it's the same thing. Hare Krishna. Now, from this particular verse onwards till the 39th verse, Shukadev Goswami talks about preparing the life or leaving the body using Ashtanga Yoga. Okay, now do you remember Ashtanga Yoga was spoken in one of the chapters in Bhagavad Gita? You remember which one was that?
6th, Prabhu, I think.
हाँ, तो 6th chapter में from the verse number I think 10 or 11 until verse number 32, Krishna gives a synopsis of Dhyan Yoga. Okay, so similarly, Ashtanga Yoga, especially the Dharana aspect, is talked about from this verse until 39th verse. But Shukadev Goswami himself gives a better solution to that, and we will see that. Look, so let's read this verse number 15. Antakale tu purusha agate gata sadhvasah छिन्द्यात् संगशस्त्रेण spruham dehenu ye chatam. A thode purport for some of these verses are a bit bigger. So who's reading translation?
Hare Krishna, translation. At the last stage of one's life, one should be bold enough not to be afraid of death, but one must cut off all attachment to the material body and everything pertaining to it and all desires thereof. Purport. The foolishness of gross materialism is that people think of making a permanent settlement in this world. Although it is a settled fact that one has to give up everything here that has been created by a valuable human energy. Great statesmen, scientists, philosophers, etc., who are foolish without any information of the spirit soul, think that this life of a few years only is all in all, and that there is nothing more after death. This poor fund of knowledge, even in the so-called learned circles of the world, is killing the vitality of human energy. And the awful result is being keenly felt. And yet to foolish materialistic men do not care about what is going to happen in the next life. The preliminary instruction in the Bhagavad Gita is that one should know that the identity of the individual living entity is not lost even after the end of this present body, which is nothing but an outward dress only. As one changes an old garment, so the individual living being also changes his body. And this change of body is called death. Death is therefore a process of changing the body at the end of the duration of present life. An intelligent person must be prepared for this and must try to have the best type of body in the next life. The best type of body is a spiritual body, which is obtained by those who go back to the kingdom of God or enter the realm of Brahman. In the second chapter of this canto, this matter will be broadly discussed, but as far as the change of body is concerned, one must prepare now for the next life. Foolish people attach more importance to the present temporary life, and thus the foolish leaders make appeals to the body and the bodily relations. The bodily relations extend not only to this body, but also to the family members, wife, children, society, country, and so many other things, which end at the end of life. After death, one forgets everything about the present bodily relations. We have a little experience of this at night when we go to sleep. While sleeping, we forget everything about this body and bodily relations. Although this forgetfulness is a temporary situation for only a few hours, death is nothing but sleeping for a few months in order to develop another term of bodily engagement, which are awarded by the law of nature according to our aspiration. Therefore, one has only to change the aspiration during the course of this present body. And for this, there is need of training in the current duration of human life. This training can begin at any stage of life or even a few seconds before death. But the usual procedure is one to get the training from very early in life, from the stage of brahmacharya, and gradually progress to the grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyasa orders of the life. The institution which gives such training is called varnashrama dharma, or the system of sanatana dharma. The best procedure for making the human life perfect. One is therefore required to give up the attachment to family or social or political life just at the age of 50 years, if not earlier. And the training in the vanaprastha and sannyasa ashrama is given for preparation of the next life. Foolish materialists in the garb of leaders of the people in general stick to family affairs without attempting to cut off relations with them, and thus they become victims of nature's law and get gross bodies again, according to their work. Such foolish leaders may have some respect from the people at the end of life, but that does not mean that such leaders will be immune to the natural laws under which everyone is tightly bound by the hands and feet. The best thing is therefore that everyone voluntarily give up family relations by transferring the attachment from family, society, country, and everything there of the devotional service of the Lord. It is started here in that one should give up all desires of family attachment. One must have a chance for better desires. Otherwise, there is no chance of giving up such morbid desires. Desire is the concomitant factor of the living entity. The living entity is eternal, and therefore its desires which are natural for a living being are also eternal. One cannot therefore stop desiring, but the subject matter for desires can be changed. So one must develop the desire for returning home back to Godhead. And automatically the desires of material gain, material honor, and material popularity will diminish in the proportion of the development of devotional service. A living being is meant for service activities, and his desires are centered around such a service attitude. Beginning from the top executive head of the state down to the insignificant pauper in the street, all are rendering some sort of service to others. The perfection of such service attitude is only attained simply by transferring the desire of service from matter to spirit or from Saturn to God. Jai
Correct.
Shri.
The beauty and the uh, depth of the purport of Srila Prabhupada can be understood uh, in this verse itself. And you will find in Srimad Bhagavatam, over meaning so many cantos, that for some of the verses, if you read just that verse's purport alone, it actually is more than sufficient to understand end to end what is wrong, why it is wrong, what is right, why it is right, and knowing the reasons behind them also properly. So this is actually very self-explanatory and it is end to end. But some of these points let us cover. So we firstly, the biggest problem which Prabhupada mentions in many verses, and it's there in Srimad Bhagavatam also, and even Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita also, that the root cause of one's falling down into the material level is, anybody, any idea what is that root cause? One
Material,
sorry.
material pleasures, right?
How and where does the desire for material pleasures come from?
The material world.
Body.
Okay, but I'm saying before you fell into the material world, where did you get the desire from of material world or material pleasures?
Because we carry the mind.
Okay, but mind is a material product.
What we discussed earlier is like we all are Krishna, but at some point of time we developed a desire to enjoy.
How did
So-
you develop the desire to enjoy? From where did the desire develop? Yeah. So Prabhupada mentions it is avidya, ignorance, lack of knowledge. Okay. And we can even go deeper into this also. Where did avidya develop? Sort of. But let's stick to this point now. So avidya, lack of knowledge, means we have forgotten what is right knowledge and we considered the wrong knowledge as the right knowledge. Now, this being a kind of the basis, the fundamental, what happens is we, or for that matter, any person will think that the pleasures received from the material world is the best pleasure and one should strive to attain more and more pleasures. Now, if you apply this thought and then now you read the purport, then you will be able to relate the sentences of Prabhupada in a much broader sense now. So gross materialism is what makes people think of making a permanent settlement in the world, which is obvious, right? Meaning, I have a house, I have wife, I have children, I have a good bank balance, I have a good job, I have this, I have that, car and everything. All of this give me some sort of pleasure. Nobody wants any kind of misery. Everybody wants pleasure. So if the current situation is giving me a required amount of pleasure, then I want the current situation to remain eternally. Or I would want that situation which will give me more and more pleasures. So let's say, for example, my car does not give me the quantity of pleasure which I have a desire for compared to, let's say, for example, Mercedes so and so car. Now then I will develop a desire to say, because my car gives me only this much desire, Mercedes can give me this much pleasure. Okay, so let me desire Mercedes. Let me take efforts to fulfill that desire. Then when I get that Mercedes car, okay, I will be very happy because my desire is fulfilled. But over a period of few years, there might be few more cars that will come up, which will be even better than this Mercedes car, and I will develop a new desire. Or if I have developed fulfilled the desire for the car, then I will develop develop a desire for having probably a big bungalow or a healthy body or whatever it is. So some or the other material desire will keep on coming, and we will want to fulfill that desire with the aim of getting that extra level of material pleasure. And that is the reason we want to make a permanent settlement in this world. Now, the problem of this one is you have a limited duration. Your duration of life is fixed. You cannot increase it just because certain desires have remained unfulfilled. So what will happen with that? So what will happen with that? The sorry, I lost my chain of thoughts. I'm sorry. So because we are putting in our energy to fulfill certain material desire, the purpose for which we were born, we are not utilizing this energy for. Okay. So this is a waste of energy. Now, just recently, in one of the, we had one function on Wednesday, the company's get together was there. So at that time, our CEO was presenting something, and he talked about a particular book which he had read recently, which mentioned about the journey or meaning of a person from the time he decided that he will want to swim almost 1,200 kilometers, something like that, and 1,600 or 800 or something like that. And that person, after doing the necessary preparations and all that stuff, he swam for almost 12 hours every day for around 157 days. And how did he develop that resilience? How did he develop the necessary mental strength, physical strength, and all that was documented in that book. So I was telling to one of my colleague who is also studying Bhagavad Gita recently. So I told him that, one day when you study Bhagavad Gita properly, you will realize how all this stuff is absolute nonsense. Because this swimming desire is not going to fetch him what he was actually born for. He was not born to develop the desire or actually fulfill the desire of swimming. If Krishna wanted that person to swim for 12 hours a day or even more, then Krishna would have made him a fish. Such a fish like maybe dolphin or shark or a whale or whoever it is, yeah, that they can swim for even 24 hours a day, and they can go in much faster speed and more than 1,800 kilometers in 157 days. He can do that also. But Krishna didn't want him to do that. That is the reason he was not given the body of a fish. So what has this person achieved? Materially, yes, fantastic. He has achieved good name, fame, better physical skills, good fitness of the body, yeah, and many things. He has now got a book on his name. He might have earned some royalty out of it, and very many things he must have earned. Yeah. But what is this? What he was born to achieve? Definitely not. So what has he done? He has wasted his energy, right? So, for example, Prabhupada had a very, very tough schedule. Yeah. He used to sleep at around 10 o'clock at night. He used to wake up at 12 in the morning. Okay. And from 12 to 2, he used to, I think he used to write books at that time. 2 to 4, he used to chant. And from 4 onwards, again, he used to start writing books. Then again Mangalarti, then meeting people and questions, answers, and presentations, seminars, and all that. He used to keep him engaged throughout the day. Now, those people who served Prabhupada very closely, like a servant, they describe his schedule and they say that not even for a single moment did he do anything other than Krishna related activity. Now that is the perfect usage of the energy, time, resources available with us. Whereas what the materialists are doing is they have good amount of time, but they waste it by working on activities which are not going to be beneficial from the purpose of human life perspective. They utilize the resources also for such purposes, and obviously the energy is also wasted. So what Prabhupada is saying here is this kind of wastage of energy which achieves no benefit at the end of life. So you have not just wasted the energy or the resources, you have wasted your whole life altogether. So he is saying that intelligence which actually helps you to discriminate between what is right and what is wrong and take the right decision, that is the intelligence one should try and cultivate, which will help us walk towards the purpose of human life. And this basically can be achieved if we have the right knowledge. That right knowledge is exactly the opposite of avidya, which we talked about in the beginning. So if you, and this avidya, and I think at the end of this purport, he mentions, right? This particular statement I liked so much. So one must develop the desire of returning home back to Godhead, which is only possible if you have the right knowledge of what is wrong in the current material world, and to address this wrong, what is right and where can we get that right. Okay. And automatically, once we develop that desire to go back to Krishna, the desire for material benefits such as popularity, fame, and all these, even honor and all that, they will fade away. They will diminish. How much will they diminish? In the proportionate of the development of the devotional service. So it is like at this point of time, a certain person may be 100% oriented towards material stuff and 0% towards spiritual stuff. But as this starts increasing the spiritual stuff, this will have to decrease. So he is saying to the proportion of our development of devotional service, we can reduce these desires. Hare Krishna. Another point, a very, very important point is because we do not have knowledge, or a common person does not have knowledge. That's why he considers wrong as right and right as wrong. Now, because he considers wrong as right, okay, he considers the people who do wrong also as right. And because of this one, his goals and his meaning idols, we can say, the meaning people whom he looks up to as an example, they also are wrong. And this is precisely, Prabhupada also always highlights the problem of democracy. So in democracy, what happens? Majority of the people who vote for a person gets elected. And that person need not necessarily be the right person, but because majority wants it that way, that's why he gets elected. Now, let's say you have 1% of the people who understand Atma Tattva, which is what Shukadev Goswami mentions, right? So if Atma Tattva is known to 1% of people, they would want to vote for a person who can help them achieve the goal of Atma Tattva. But because 99% do not know, the 99% will consider this as nonsense, and they will vote for somebody who is actually going to help them achieve Bhautik Tattva, the materialism. And then such a leader will be imposed upon us also. Hare Krishna. Okay, I'll move on to the next verse.
सर वो अविद्या और इल्यूजन में डिफरेंस है?
No, illusion is a byproduct of avidya. इल्यूजन क्या करता है? इल्यूजन मेक्स अस थिंक कि द राइट एज रॉन्ग एंड रॉन्ग एज राइट। बट ये क्यों आता है? हम लोग वो क्यों स्टेज पे आते हैं? बिकॉज ऑफ लैक ऑफ नॉलेज, बिकॉज ऑफ अविद्या, बिकॉज ऑफ इग्नोरेंस।
क्योंकि भगवत गीता में कृष्ण बोलता है ना, एवरीबडी इज बॉर्न विद सम काइंड ऑफ इल्यूजन। आई वाज थिंकिंग वो रिलेटेड है क्या?
नहीं, वो सही है वो, बिकॉज बिकॉज वी आर अंडर इल्यूजन, दैट इज द रीजन वी टेक ऑन अ मटेरियल बॉडी, राइट? अदरवाइज हम लोग को बॉडी
हाँ।
लेने की जरूरत ही नहीं थी।
हाँ,
एंड
ओके।
एंड ऐसा देखो तो पीपल लाइक, मीनिंग द कॉमन पीपल टुडे have done certain karma previously, and that's the result we are taking this body. So we are already under illusion, whether it is previous life or the current life. Hare Krishna. गृहात् प्रव्रजितो धीरः पुण्यतीर्थ जलाप्लुतः शुचौ विविक्त आसीनो विधिवत कल्पितासने। Translation. Sorry, एक
Translation.
minute. Nehal Mataji, you wanted to take some screenshot, you said, right? Were you able to take it?
अपना 15th।
हाँ, ओके, मैं आपको इसकी लिंक भेज दूंगा, आप वो देख सकते हो इसको।
ओके ओके प्रभु जी, थैंक यू वेरी मच।
हरे कृष्णा। सॉरी,
हरे कृष्ण।
हरे कृष्णा। सॉरी प्रभु, प्लीज कंटिन्यू।
Yeah, translation by Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. One should leave home and practice self-control. In a scared place, in a scared place,
Sacred
he
place.
should bathe. Sacred place, he should bathe regularly and sit down in a lonely place, duly sanctified. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. To prepare oneself for the better next life, one must get out of one's so-called home. The system of Varnashrama Dharma or Sanatana Dharma prescribes retirement from family encumbrance as early as possible after one has passed 50 years of age. Modern civilization is based on family comforts, the highest standard of amenities, and therefore, after retirement, everyone expects to live a very comfortable life in a well-furnished home decorated with fine ladies and children, without any desire to get out of such a comfortable home. High government officers and ministers stick to their price post until death, and they neither dream nor desire to get out of homely comforts. Bound by such hallucination, materialistic men prepare various plans for a still more comfortable life. But suddenly, cruel death comes without mercy and takes away the great plan maker against his desire, forcing him to give up the present body for another body. Such a plan maker is thus forced to accept another body in one of the 8.4 million species of life according to the fruits of the work he has performed. In the next life, the persons who are too much attached to family comforts are generally awarded lower species of life on account of sinful acts performed during a long duration of sinful life, and thus all the energy of the human life is spoiled. In order to be saved from the danger of spoiling the human form of life and being attached to unreal things, one must take warning of death at the age of 50, if not earlier. The principle is that one should take it for granted that the death warning is already there, even prior to the attainment of 50 years of age, and thus, at any stage of life, one should prepare himself for a better next life. The system of the Sanatana Dharma institution is so made that the followers is trained for a better next life, without any chance that the human life will be spoiled. The holy place all over the world are meant for the residential purposes of retirement persons, getting ready for a better next life. Intelligent persons must go there at the end of life, and for that matter, after 50 years of age, to live a life of spiritual regeneration for the sake of being freed from family attachment, which is considered to be the s- be the which is
Shackle.
considered to be the shackles of material life. One is recommended to quit home just to get rid of material attachment, because one who sticks to family life until death cannot get rid of material attachment, and also as one is materially attached, one cannot understand spiritual freedom. One should not, however, become complacent simply by leaving home or by creating another home at the holy place, either lawfully or unlawfully. Many persons leave home and go to such holy places, but due to bad association, again become family men by illicit connections with the opposite sex. The illusory energy of matter is so strong that one is apt to be under such illusion at every stage of life, even after quitting one's happy home. Therefore, it is essential that one practice self control by celibacy without the least desire for sex indulgence. For a man desiring to improve the condition of his existence, sex indulgence is considered suicidal, or even worse. Therefore, to live apart from family life means to become self controlled in regard to all sense desires, especially sex desire. The method is that one should have a duly sanctified sitting place made of straw, deerskin, or and carpet, and thus sitting on it, one should chant the holy name of the Lord without offense, as prescribed above. The whole process is to drag the mind from material engagement and fix it on the lotus feet of the Lord. This simple process alone will help one advance to the highest stage of spiritual success. Jai
Jai
Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhu. It was a long purport, but it gives such a detailed understanding about the complete process of fall down and how we can avoid that. So now I'll not go deeper into this one. Prabhupada has written elaborately, very well, so we can easily understand. But one point to be noted here is this verse talked about the process of initiating Ashtanga Yoga. Okay, how one should sit, where should one actually start practicing? Okay, in a sacred place. So sacred place, how do you define a sacred place? Any guesses?
Basically, places of worship,
Yeah. So now, what could be the places of worship as example?
temple,
But if
ashram.
temple, okay, temple, ashram, yeah. But generally, meaning it is recommended to go to a place where it is a place of pilgrimage, like Vrindavan, Mathura, Dwarka, Jagannath Puri, or Navadvip, Mayapur, Kedarnath, Badrinath, yeah, Rishikesh, Haridwar, kind of, yeah. Why? Because the saintly people or the Lord Himself had advented in that place, and that's why it has become sanctified. So there is no tendency to gather some sinful mentality, so that has been removed from the place. I remember one of my colleagues who was from Rishikesh. He told me once that sorry, who was that child who took his Shravan took his parents in kind of two baskets, and he carried that from his village until the place of pilgrimage. So he had good thoughts, and that's why he did such a noble activity. And while traveling, he reached a certain village wherein that village was not known to be a kind of a place of pilgrimage. It was a kind of an ordinary village. And at that time, he developed these thoughts of, yeah, what am I doing this? Why am I carrying so much burden on my shoulders? Am I doing it right or wrong? Okay. But somehow then he still decided, okay, now that I have started, let me I'll go a little ahead and then I will see. With this thought, he entered Rishikesh. And then immediately the purity of the place played upon his mentality, and those thoughts got wiped out, of meaning the previous thoughts. And then he realized the mistake that he was committing by having such a thought in his mind. And then he carried on to the final, his destination. So what my friend was trying to tell me, the colleague, was that the place matters a lot because it, plays upon your mentality also. So that is the beauty of such places. So rather than, meaning, yes, temple is also perfect, ashram is also very nice, but if these are in the place of pilgrimage, they will have even a better effect. Because once you come out of the temple, then you will still be subjected to the same mentality which is there overall in the town or city. So that's why sacred place is mentioned here, and certain process for bodily cleansing are mentioned. Now, the similar stuff is mentioned in the sixth chapter also. Shucho deshe pratisthapya is what Krishna says. Shucho deshe meaning in a clean and sanctified place one should sit. Okay. So you can see these verses from previous verse number 15 till verse number 39, they speak about Ashtanga Yoga, and there is a huge amount of similarity between what Krishna has mentioned and what Shukadev Goswami is mentioning. Okay, now the objective of this verse was this much only, which what Prabhupada covered in the last 4 or 5 lines. But to reach to that thought process, he gave such a big background, which actually helps us understand why that life is important, how it can get wasted, and how it should be avoided from wasting, and what are the drawbacks, what are the advantages of avoiding or not avoiding the wastage, all of that. So I like this particular statement very much, which says, we live our life to in trying to become more and more comfortable. Yeah, so good amount of our life we spend earning money so that we can buy certain properties, very well furnished, decorated, and we can live in that one. And we do not develop any desire to come out of such comfortable home, and that is the problem. Yeah. So for me, one of the very important thoughts, or one of the important questions, was actually asked by Rakesh Prabhu, and I still remember it very well. We were studying 8th chapter, if you remember, Rakesh Prabhu, prior to the one that we studied recently. The last time when we were studying 8th chapter, you had asked him, what is the need for understanding what are the problems of this material life? So actually, that understanding is important, because if we do not understand the drawbacks of this one, we will never want to get out of the material world. So like, we can take an example of a job as well. So currently, if our job is paying us very good salary and very good promotions and all that, and if you don't have any problem, we will never want to come out of that particular job and seek another job. Yeah. So this is the same case. Professionally, we can relate it to it. Because our current home is giving us all the desired comforts, that's why we will never want to come out of that comfortable home. And if that doesn't happen, then we will never develop the desire to go back to Krishna. So when we are under some kind of discomfort because of material circumstances, it is actually a reason we should thank Krishna to make us realize that this is a place of misery. So only then we will go closer to Krishna. Hare Krishna. Let's read the 17th verse. Abhyasen manasa shuddham तीव्रुद ब्रह्माक्षरम परम मनो यच्छेजित श्वासो ब्रह्म बीजम विस्मरन. Translation.
After sitting in the above manner, make the mind remember the three transcendental letters A, U, M, and by regulating the breathing process, control the mind so as not to forget the transcendental seed. Omkar or the Pranav is the seed of transcendental realization, and it is composed of the three transcendental letters A, U, M. By its chanting by the mind in conjunction with the breathing process, which is transcendental but mechanical way of getting into trance, as devised by the experience of great mystics, one is able to bring the mind, which is materially absorbed, under control. This is the way of changing the habit of the mind. The mind is not to be killed. Mind or desire cannot be stopped, but to develop a desire to function for spiritual realization, the quality of engagement by the mind has to be changed. The mind is the pivot of the active sense organs, and as such, if the quality of thinking, feeling, and willing is changed, naturally the quality of actions by the instrumental senses will also change. Omkar is the seed of all transcendental sound, and it is only the transcendental sound which can bring about the desired change of the mind and the senses. Even a mentally deranged man can be cured by treatment of transcendental sound. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Pranav Omkar has been accepted as the direct literal representation of the supreme absolute truth. One has to be one who is not able to chant directly the holy name of the Lord as recommended above can easily chant the Pranav Omkar. The Omkar is the note of address such as O my Lord, just as Om Hari Om means O my Lord, the Supreme Personality of the Godhead. As we have explained before, the Lord's holy name is identical with the Lord Himself. So also in Omkar, so also is Omkar. But persons who are unable to realize the transcendental personal form or the name of the Lord on account of their imperfect senses, in other words, the neophytes, are trained to practice of self-realization by this mechanical process of regulating the breathing function and simultaneously repeating the pranav omkar within the mind. As we have several times expressed, since the transcendental name, form, attributes, pastimes, etc. of the personality of the Godhead are impossible to understand with the present material senses, it is necessary that through the mind, the center of sensual activities, such transcendental relation be set into motion. The devotees directly fix their minds on the person of the absolute truth, but one who is unable to accommodate such personal features of the absolute is disciplined in impersonality to train the mind to make further progress. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So one of the objectives what Shukadev Goswami is talking about is to explain the superiority of Bhakti Yoga, which is very well understood. Like I think almost all of you have completed studying Bhagavad Gita at least once fully. So you understand where Krishna has mentioned this, that the Bhakti Yoga is superior. So what Shukadev Goswami is trying to teach is a kind of a process. But can somebody tell me what is the drawback of this process? If this process were to be super fantastic, why would Krishna not recommend it to us? Or let's forget Bhagavad Gita for a moment. Here, in this particular context, why this process is not perfect?
Prabhu, number one, you will not find such a place anywhere
Hey,
within
no,
the
no,
normal reach.
no. This is happening 5,000 years back. ओके तो वहां पे आज का इतना पॉल्यूशन नहीं था ना, मटेरियल पॉल्यूशन.
I thought you are asking now what
No, no,
exactly
no.
is.
I'm talking about that current context in which Shukadev Goswami is speaking. What is the drawback of that?
Time,
Sorry?
considering this is a lengthier process.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So this controlling the mind is not something which can happen in 7 days. Yeah. What is Parikshit Maharaj asking? In these 7 days, what am I supposed to do? What should I hear? What should I do? What should I not do? What should I chant? What should I recite? Whereas Shukadev Goswami is talking about a process which requires far longer time of life. The body has to be alive until then. And that is why this particular process is not practical, at least for Parikshit Maharaj in that current context. If somebody were to have a huge amount of duration of life left and he wants to do some R&D with this particular stuff, it is understandable. It is okay to do it. Yeah. Although it is not right, it is not ideal, but still he doesn't lose too much because his life continues. Now, if you see this in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, let me open that. In the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, in the first few verses itself, he is saying, for him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. Okay. Now, okay, one must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. Now, okay. So you see, anything if you try to utilize in the service of Krishna, that turns to be positive, and anything which is against the service of Krishna or for the service of the body or the material stuff, it is always going to be bad for us. That's why we need to develop that desire for spiritual realization. That's why Prabhupada is saying quality of engagement of mind has to be changed. Okay. And anybody remembers, yeah, again in Bhagavad Gita, in the 2nd chapter, okay, in the 59th verse, Krishna mentions Param Drishtva Nivartate. This is one very, very important verse of the 2nd chapter. He says, Param Drishtva Nivartate. What does it mean? By experiencing a higher taste. So currently we are at this level, we are enjoying this level, and that's why we are not ready to give up this level. Okay, only if somebody comes and tell us that there is one level higher happiness you can get, but to get that you have to give up this one, then we will be ready to take it up and then give up this one. But if somebody says no, 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 go down one step, you will get lower quality of happiness, we will not give that. So what Krishna was telling in this particular verse is, one can give up that lower quality of happiness if the engagement happens with a higher quality of activity, which can give us higher quality of happiness. So Prabhupada is saying a similar stuff here. You need to change the quality of engagement of the mind. We think that we become happy by doing something, some material activity. Prabhupada is saying, or Krishna is saying, Shukadev Goswami is saying that that's not actually the case. You might get temporary sensual pleasures, but over a period of some amount of time, you will start getting the negatives of your activity. Okay. Now, I'm sure you know this. In the 10th chapter, I think in the 25th verse, and also in the 7th chapter, I think 9th verse, I guess, if I'm not wrong, Krishna mentioned who is Omkar. Pranavaha sarva vedeshu shabda khe paurusham rishu. So he mentions that Pranav Omkar is myself. In the 10th chapter, 25th verse also, he says the same thing. Yeah. But where does this stop? If Om is supposed to be chanted, and if that were the best one, why are we chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra? Why do we not chant Om? Any idea? Who can answer? Nahin?
Hare Krishna is probably more personal. Om is bit impersonal.
Yes, that is one, and it's a direct address to the Lord. Yeah. And also, Krishna says, if you remember, in the 8th chapter, 13th verse, he says, Omityekaksharam Brahma Vyaharan Mamanusmaran. Okay. So he says, Om Ityekakshara, Om, and similar words he's saying, after being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om. Okay, now he is referring to those devotees which he had referred to in the 6th chapter. So in the 6th chapter, Krishna had talked about a devotee or a yogi who does Dhyan Yoga. But Arjun said that it is not possible. What happens to an unsuccessful yogi? So Krishna then took a diversion and he started explaining about the unsuccessful yogi. But then what happens to a successful dhyana yogi, that he never talked about, which he talks about in these few verses in this 8th chapter. Okay, I think 10, 11, 12, I think 9 also is there. No, 9 nahi hai. 10, 11, 12, 13 में बात करता है वो. So these 4 verses then connect this 6th chapter, the successful yogi, and how the successful dhyana yogi can become a successful bhakti yogi. That connection Krishna is establishing here. He is saying if one thinks of the supreme personality of Godhead and then he practices this yoga, that is Dhyan Yoga, by vibrating the sacred syllable Om, then only he will reach the spiritual planets. Very important point. He is not saying first chant Om and then remember Krishna. He is saying first remember me and then chant Krishna, then chant Om. Hare Krishna. Let's move on. I have taken a bit longer time, so थोड़ा फास्ट जाता हूँ. नियत छेद विषयेभ्यो क्षण क्षान मनसा बुद्धि सारथी मन कर्मभिराक्षिप्तम शुभार्थे धारये धिया. Translation.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Translation. Gradually, as the mind becomes progressively spiritualized, we draw it from sense activities, and by intelligence, the senses will be controlled. The mind, to absorb in material activities, can be engaged in the service of the personality of Godhead and become fixed in full transcendental consciousness. Perfect. The first process of spiritualizing is the first process of spiritualizing the mind by mechanical chanting of the pranava omkara and by control of the breathing system is technically called the mystic or yogic process of pranayama, or fully controlling the breathing air. The ultimate state of this pranayama system is to be fixed in trance, technically called samadhi. But experience has proven that even the samadhi stage also fails to control the materially absorbed mind. For example, the great mystic Vishwamitra Muni, even in the stage of samadhi, became a victim of the senses and cohabited with Menaka. History has already recorded this. The mind, although ceasing to think of sensual activities at present, remembers past sensual activities from the subconscious status and thus disturbs one from 100% engagement in self-realization. Therefore, Sukadeva Goswami recommends the next step of assured policy, namely to fix one's mind in the service of the personality of Godhead. Lord Sri Krishna, the supreme personality of Godhead, also recommends this direct process in the Bhagavad Gita 6.47. Thus, the mind being spiritually cleansed, one should at once engage himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord by the different devotional activities of hearing, chanting, etc. If performed under proper guidance, that is the surest path of progress, even for the disturbed mind.
Jai.
Jai Srila.
Jai Shri Prabhupada. So, anybody remembers what are the 8 stages of Dhyan Yoga? Ashtanga Yoga, sorry. आपने किया है ना ये सब, राकेश प्रभु?
Dhyan Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. I
No,
don't know
no.
the
The Ashtanga Yoga I'm asking.
No, Ashtanga Yoga, 8 steps, yeah, I forgot probably.
The 8 stages, they start with,
It is Yam,
Yam.
Niyam, Asana,
yes, correct. Yam,
Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharana,
Dhyan,
Dharana, Dhyan, and Samadhi.
correct, exactly. Very nice, Prabhu. Yeah. So this pranayam is the 4th stage. Yam niyam is basically regulations, following the rules, regulations, and all. Asan is the posture, which people think that today's yogasan will give them that yogic siddhi. And they don't understand that this is only good for whatever they are doing is for good for the material body, not for any spiritual growth. Pranayam is the 4th stage, controlling the breathing air. So I have written a kind of a big piece of almost 2-page article on this one. What are the different stages? So there are these chakras in our body, which are called as Muladhara chakra, and at 7 different places, starting from the lower abdomen, then the navel portion, then upper the chest area, then above that, and going up to almost the top of the head. Okay, so how the life air prana, okay, is moved from one stage to another, to another, to another, and then finally it reaches that stage where the yogi, upon his own wish, he can decide when to give up the body. Okay, so you might have seen some pictures drawn by ISKCON devotees that a yogi is sitting, and his body is like just a normal covering of the flesh. Otherwise, all his bones are seen. Long hair, matted hair are there, and then the soul is shown as if it is going out of the body. So there is one verse in 13th verse of the 5th chapter where Krishna says, Navadvare pure dehi naiva kurvanna karayan. So this body has 9 holes, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, 1 mouth, and 2 genitals. Now, or excreting organ. Now, the lower organs, okay, if the soul passes away from this one, then it is considered that that person will go into a hellish life or into animal species. But if a person is able to pass from the higher organs, then he may get a better life in the next life. But what a yogi tries to do is he tries to let the soul out from the top of the head, which is the best way of exiting. Okay. So all this are not possible for people like you and me at this point of time. Okay. And not only that, Prabhupada states that this was a kind of meaning a process followed previously by people, but there also history has recorded that people like Vishwamitra Muni did not succeed in this one. So there is a big story around that one. I'll not go into it, but Vishwamitra Muni was doing this tapasya for the sake of achieving the status of Brahmarshi. Otherwise, people used to call him as Rajarshi. Okay, and Brahma Rishis are known to be better than Rajarshis. And he fell prey to Menka. There is another story about Muni called as Saubhari Muni. I'm sure you all must be aware of it. I've spoken about it many times. So when Saubhari Muni was meditating under the water, he saw 2 fishes mating with each other, and he gave up his tapasya altogether and went to the king, wanted to marry. He did a lot of activities after that. He married 250 princes over there. And then after that, he realized what a mistake he has done. Then after a while, then he went back to his tapasya and he got mukti. So the point is, these activities will still do not guarantee that you will reach the final step. And people who think that this is the final step, achieving the goal of this process, Krishna says, no, that is not the goal of life. The goal of process need not be the goal of our spiritual material life altogether. Yeah, my process may be good, it has its own goal. I may be able to achieve it, but that's not necessarily that it's the same goal as what my the reason behind giving me a material body is. Okay, and that he explains in the verse 6.47. Do you remember what this verse is? Anybody? Okay, so this actually is the connection between the Karma Yoga, Dhyan Yoga aspect, which Krishna talks about from the 2nd chapter till the 6th chapter, and the Bhakti Yoga, which starts from 7th till the 12th chapter. So this is the connecting verse. Okay, and very important verse. Okay, one should know it by heart, word by word meaning also. योगिनाम अपि सर्वेषां मद्गतेनान्तरात्मना श्रद्धावान भजते यो माम समय युक्त तमो मतः. He is saying of all yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, renders transcendental service to me. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. So this verse puts rest to all the questions that can arise out of the benefits of Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, Dhyan Yoga, whatever yoga it is, except Bhakti Yoga. Hare Krishna. I think बहुत कम time बचा हुआ है, so okay, I'll not go into detail now. I'll just speak at a summary level. तत्रैकावयवं ध्यायेद् अव्युच्छिन्नेन चेतसा मनो निर्विषयं युक्त्वा ततः किंचन न स्मरेत् पदं तत्परमं विष्णोर मनो यत्र प्रसीदति.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Thereafter, you should meditate upon the limbs of Vishnu, one after another, without being deviated from the conception of the complete body. Thus, the mind becomes free from all sense objects. There should be no other thing to be thought upon, because the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, is the ultimate truth. The mind becomes completely reconciled in Him only. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Foolish persons, delivered by the external energy of Vishnu, do not know that the ultimate goal of the progressive search for happiness is to get in touch directly with Lord Vishnu. The personality of Godhead, Vishnu Tattva, is an ultimate, unlimited expansion of different transcendental forms of the personality of Godhead. And the supreme or original form of Vishnu Tattva is Govinda, or Lord Krishna, the supreme cause of all causes. Therefore, thinking of Vishnu or meditating upon the transcendental form of Vishnu, especially upon Lord Krishna, is the last word on the subject of meditation. This meditation may be begun from the lotus feet of the Lord. One should not, however, forget or be misled from the complete form of the Lord. Thus,
One should.
one second, I'm reading from a monitor which is called.
Okay.
Personality of Godhead, Vishnu Tattva is unlimited expansion of different transcendental forms of the personality of Godhead. At a supreme or original form of Vishnu is Govinda. One should not, however, forget or be misled from the complete form of the Lord. Thus, one should practice thinking of different parts of his transcendental body, one after another. Here in this verse, it is definitely assured that the Supreme Lord is not impersonal. He is a person, but his body is different from those of conditioned persons like us. Otherwise, meditation begins from the pranava, omkara, up to the limbs of the personal body of Vishnu would not have been recommended by Sukadeva Goswami for the attainment of complete spiritual perfection. The Vishnu form of worship is great in worship in great temples of India are not, therefore, arrangements of the idol worship, as they are wrongly interpreted to be by a class of men with a poor fund of knowledge. Rather, they are different spiritual centers of meditation on the transcendental limbs of the body of Vishnu. The worshipable deity in the temple of Vishnu is identical with the Lord Vishnu by the inconceivable potency of the Lord. Therefore, a neopathy's concentration of meditation upon the limbs of Vishnu in the temple, as contemplated in the revealed scriptures, is an easy opportunity for meditation for persons who are unable to sit down tightly at one place and then concentrate upon prana, omkara, or the limbs of the body of Vishnu. As recommended herein by Sukadev Goswami, the great authority, the common man can benefit more by meditating on the form of Vishnu in the temple than on the Omkara. The spiritual combination of AUM, as explained before. There is no difference between Omkara and the form of Vishnu, but persons unacquainted with this science of absolute truth they try to create decisions dissensions by differentiating between the form of Vishnu and that of Omkara. Here it is indicated that Vishnu form is ultimate goal of meditation, and as such, it is better to concentrate upon the forms of Vishnu than on impersonal Omkara. The later process is also more difficult than the former. Jai Shri Prabhupada, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, so basically this verse takes us kind of connection between the impersonal towards the personal stuff, right? So people who become expert in chanting Omkar, doing Dhyan Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga, as mentioned until the previous verse, now for them, he is saying that now you can actually try connecting to the personal form of the Lord, which is Vishnu himself, and initiate that starting with the limbs of the Lord. Okay. And that is what he will explain a little later also. So various limbs of the Lord, what do they represent? Okay. How can they be connected with certain material element? That also he will talk about. The key point to be taken from this one is to understand that the Lord is personal. He is a person. Okay, so to think that because Omkar is impersonal, and if we are chanting Om, doesn't mean the Lord is also impersonal. The Lord is a person. And we talked about that particular verse, right? Here. See this. He who meditates on me as the supreme personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he is sure to reach me. Krishna is saying, 8th chapter, 8th verse. One should meditate upon the Supreme Person as the one who knows everything. Okay. These are the 10 qualities that he mentions in this particular verse about the Supreme Person. So if you are going to meditate upon Krishna or Vishnu, you should know what that person is in order to be able to meditate upon him. Okay. The oldest, controller, smaller than smallest, maintainer of everything, beyond all material conception, inconceivable, and who is always a person. The most important point. So Krishna is confirming that the Lord is a person. So that's why the connection between the impersonal meditation of Ashtanga Yoga can transcend to the personal meditation. Hare Krishna, which Shukadev Goswami here is mentioning that the goal of meditation is Vishnu. Okay. Now I've already crossed 11:30 and we still have 2 more verses to be covered. What do you suggest? Shall we continue or shall we take these 2 verses in the next week? इनके purports छोटे हैं. Shall we do it quickly?
Yeah.
5 minutes. सबको चलेगा? सुमति माता जी, नेहल माता जी, सुशील प्रभु, राव प्रभु, Rakesh
Yes,
Prabhu?
Prabhuji. Yes,
Chalo.
yes.
Okay, Prabhuji.
No.
Okay, thank you. रजस्तमोभ्याम आक्षिप्तम विमूढ़न मन आत्मनः यच्छेद्धारणया धीरो हन्ति या तत्कृतं मलम. Translation.
One's mind is always agitated by the passionate mode of material nature and bewildered by the ignorant mode of nature. But one can rectify such conceptions by the relation of Vishnu and thus become pacified by cleansing the dirty things created by them. Persons generally conducted by the modes of passion and ignorance cannot be bona fide candidates for being situated in the transcendental stage of God realization. Only persons conducted by the mode of goodness can have the knowledge of the supreme truth. Effects of the mode of passion and ignorance are manifested by too much hankering after wealth and women. And those who are too much after wealth and women can rectify their learnings only by constant remembrance of Vishnu in his in his feature composed as impersonal potencies. Generally, the impersonalists or monists are influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance. Such impersonalists think of themselves as liberated souls, but they have no knowledge of the transcendental personal feature of the absolute truth. Actually, they are impure in heart on account of being devoid of knowledge of the personal feature of the absolute. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that after many hundreds of births, the impersonal philosopher surrenders unto the personality of the Godhead. To acquire such a qualification of God realization in the personal feature, the neophyte impersonalist is given a chance to realize the relation of the Lord in everything by the philosophy of pantheism. Pantheism is Pantheism in its higher status does not permit the student to form an impersonal conception of the absolute truth, but it extends the conception of absolute truth into the field of so-called material energy. Everything created by the material energy can be devoted with the absolute by an attitude of service, which is essential part of the living energy. The pure devotee of the Lord knows the art of converting everything into its spiritual existence by this service attitude, and only in that devotional way can the theory be pantheism be perfected.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, you have to slightly give light on this, what exactly this pantheism means.
Okay, so what this verse talks about is basically the impact of the modes of passion and ignorance. Okay, so what does passion do? Passion creates some kind of desire, some kind of agitation, and that agitation makes us want to enjoy the material world. Okay, which means for example, when you see a car, when you see a handsome boy or a beautiful girl or somebody who is very rich or powerful or whatever it is, yeah, immediately the desire develops. I also want this, right? Now this is the cause of the rajogun. So the more the rajogun that we have, automatically it develops into what do you say, a certain desire towards fulfilling a particular what do you say, or obtaining some kind of pleasure. Ignorance actually misleads us into thinking that whatever we are doing is right, even if it is completely wrong, and whatever is right is we think that that is wrong, not supposed to be done. So that is the power of the mode of tamogun. Now imagine when the both of these mix with each other, kya combination hoga wo? Yeah, ek to whatever we do is wrong, whatever we are supposed to do we don't do, which is supposed to be right, वो नहीं करेंगे हम लोग, and जो wrong है वो करेंगे, and उसके ऊपर lot of desire is there कि करना ही है करके, हाँ, मुझे आई वॉन्ट टू बाय अ मर्सिडीज, मेरे पास पैसा नहीं है, नो प्रॉब्लम, आई विल रॉब अ बैंक, आई विल किल सो एंड सो पर्सन, टेक हिज मनी एंड आई विल गेट इट। ये कॉम्बिनेशन की वजह से हो सकता है। बट ही इज सेइंग दैट इफ you relate with Vishnu, you are basically initiating your journey to associate with the mode of goodness. Okay. And that mode will help you get rid of these nonsense desires and the incorrect knowledge, and it will help you associate more and more with Vishnu, understand Vishnu. And with this understanding, you will be able to rectify the misconception about material benefits, material pleasures. And whatever dirty things are created by these two modes, the association of Vishnu in terms of thoughts, words, chanting, hearing, recitation, whatever it is, or directly by worshipping the Lord. And that is the reason in the previous verse it was mentioned about the temples, right? So if you associate with the temples, with the deity in the temple, then you are actually associating with Vishnu directly. When you associate with Vishnu directly, these nonsense thoughts and these dirty thoughts created by Rajo and Tamogun get eliminated gradually. Now, in between these two, there is this stage of pantheism. Now, what is pantheism? Pantheism means, okay, let me explain this. Okay. So, to think that there is only one God is called as monotheism. Theism is what? A philosophy of theists. A theist is somebody who believes in God. That's why the negation of the word theist is somebody who does not believe in the God, which is called as atheist, right? So you might have heard this word before, atheist. They do not believe in God. Theists believe. Now, theists, okay, follow the theory of theism. That means belief in God. Okay. Now, there are multiple beliefs. One is pantheism, which think that one is monotheism, which thinks that which says only one God. Okay. And then there is pantheism, which thinks there are many gods. But actually, there are not many gods. They are representation of the main God in various functions. Okay. And how do we understand that? So Krishna tells us, right, that whatever you are getting from these demigods is actually given by me only. But because you do not have sufficient spiritual knowledge, because your knowledge has been stolen by material desires, you tend to think that this is coming from so and so demigod, because I prayed to so and so demigod, he has given it to me. So you think that that demigod is ultimate because he can give you something. You do not have the knowledge that in the background, it is me who is giving him the power to give that something to you. And when we develop that faith to such a level, which reaches some kind of conviction that yes, so and so demigod is the most important demigod, he is the supreme. And that way, if there are multiple people who think that there are demigod number 1 is supreme, demigod number 2 is supreme, 3 is supreme, 4 is supreme, then that creates that sort of theory or a belief which says that there are many gods, which is what represented by the word pantheism. ठीक है? So
thank you, sir.
अभी क्लियर हो गया पैंथीज्म का?
Yes, Prabhu, yes.
Now, इसका ड्रॉबैक क्या होता है? Then पैंथीज्म का ड्रॉबैक ये है कि we tend to ignore the actual supreme God and his supremacy over anything and everything, whether it is material world, spiritual world, demigods हो and normal living entities हो, जो भी हो, उसके ऊपर सुप्रीमसी जो होती है, we tend to ignore that. That is the drawback. But इसमें इसका बेनिफिट क्या है कि like from going from step number 1 to step number 3, step number 2 में पहले जाने की जरूरत होती है. right? Meaning it's not mandatory. Those who cannot go from 1 to 3 directly, they benefit by going to step number 2. At least certain level of elevation hota hai. If you look at step number 0, that is the level of atheism. Atheists reside there. Then you start thinking, huh, God exists. He could be in an impersonal form. मैंने देखा नहीं, तो I think God does not have a body because मैंने देखा नहीं. But then the next level is ठीक है, एक नहीं, God has a body, or maybe there are many gods. And that many gods say, then we start coming to one God, and he is the supreme. And of course, he is a person, he has a body. Hare Krishna. And iska ye benefit, if you see this word sentence Prabhupada has mentioned, pantheism in its higher status does not permit the student to form an impersonal conception of the absolute truth. Okay, which is important. It at least brings you to the level that God is not formless. Okay, मैं अभी ज़्यादा deep में नहीं जा रहा हूँ, but I'm thinking you are
No, my query is, yeah, I've understood.
And I'm trying to say that you're intelligent enough to understand where I'm pointing to, that pantheism is better because it is higher than the impersonal conception of absolute truth. Okay. Hare Krishna. Last verse देखते हैं. I'm sorry, इसको 20 को भी थोड़ा time लिया मैंने. यस्याम संधार्यमाणायाम योगिनो भक्ति लक्षणः आशु संपद्यते योग आश्रयं भद्रमीक्षतः.
Hare Krishna. Translation. O King, by this system of remembrance and by being fixed in the habit of seeing the all-God personal conception of the Lord, one can very soon attain devotional service to the Lord under his direct shelter. Purport. Success of mystic performances is achieved only by the help of the devotional attitude. Pantheism, or the system of feeling the presence of the Almighty everywhere, is a sort of training of the mind to become accustomed to the devotional conception. And it is this devotional attitude of the mystic that makes possible the successful termination of such mystic attempts. One is not, however, elevated to such a successful status without the tinge of mixture in devotional service. The devotional atmosphere created by pantheistic version develops into devotional service in later days, and that is the only benefit for the impersonalist. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 12.5 that the impersonal way of self-realization is more troublesome because it reaches the goal in an indirect way, although the impersonalist also becomes obsessed with the personal feature of the Lord after a long time. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada. So this basically confirms that all roads finally lead to God. Okay. How to understand this statement? You know, in one of the lectures I had mentioned, let's say you are on Dubai Abu Dhabi road. Okay. So Dubai Abu Dhabi road leads to Abu Dhabi. Okay. Let's say you are in Dubai, you want to go to Abu Dhabi. The problem of that is sometimes you may be going in a wrong direction towards Dubai. Let's say you are in Jebel Ali and you are driving towards Dubai, but you want to go to Abu Dhabi. So the road that you are on, Dubai Abu Dhabi road, leads to Abu Dhabi anyway, but you are on a wrong direction. At a certain point of time, you will reach a stage where you will understand that you are on the right road but in the wrong direction. What you will do in that case? You will take an interchange or you will take a U-turn and come onto the other side of the road and start driving towards Dubai. Abu Dhabi. So this is the same thing here. Impersonalism is still better than atheism. Okay. So if you see in the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, when Arjun told Krishna कि भाई you are speaking double ढोल बजा रहे हो, दोनों साइड से बात कर रहे हो, इक्विवोकली बात कर रहे हो, मेरे को एक परफेक्ट क्या है बताओ, मुझे कंफ्यूज मत करो. तब what did Krishna said? He talked about karma sannyas and karma yoga. He said both of these are good. Karma sannyas is the Gyan Yoga process, the Sankhya Yoga process. Okay, which in a certain way we can relate to Dhyan Yoga also, because दोनों में ज्ञान योग impersonal होता है, ध्यान योग परमात्मा के ऊपर होता है. But it is still, both are still not on the final supreme Lord. So he is saying कि karma sannyas is not bad. Okay, it is, both are good, but karma yoga is better. Why? Because karma sannyas has too much of difficulty associated with it, and then there is also a chance of failure. So that's why he's saying karma yoga process le lo, gradually you will become a bhakti yogi also, which is what Krishna talks about when Arjun asks a more direct question in 12.1. Krishna says, किसको worship करूं? Arjun पूछता है कि you have told me about many different forms. इम्पर्सनल बता दिया है, टू हैंड बताया, काल रूप टाइम का फॉर्म बता दिया, फोर हैंड बता दिया, विश्व रूप बता दिया, और उधर आपने इधर विराट रूप बताया था, एंड सो मेनी थिंग्स दैट है, विच फॉर्म शुड आई वर्शिप एक्चुअली. तो वो बोलता है कि 12.2 में ही सेज दैट दिस फॉर्म ऑफ माइंड which you can see right now in front of you is the one you should worship. Tribhanga Shama Sundar Roop is what we should worship. And then he says in this particular verse, why the impersonal conception and the path of impersonalism is not the best one. He's saying for those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. Okay. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. First, that means people like you and me who have a body will find it difficult to conceive the impersonal and worship him. Instead, he's saying, wo galat hai, wo mat karo. This is the direct and the best method that I am giving. Worship me directly. Karke. Hare Krishna. So we close today here. Sorry, I took a very long time today. Extra 20 minutes ho gaya. Hare Krishna. Any question quickly?
Prabhuji, please can you put those 8 kind of Ashtanga Marg in group? I could not write all. Nam, yam, nam,
Yum, yum.
yam.
Niyam.
That you please put it in the group.
वो 6 चैप्टर ध्यान योग में प्रभुपाद ने परपोर्ट में लिखा है. I will give that link also to you.
Okay, Prabhuji, which shloka it is?
I will send the link to you.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. See you next week.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dandavat Pranam.
Pranam. Thank you.